West Ham are 3-0 up away in Denmark, 6-1 up on aggregate. So you might as well come and watch us, yeah? That's the way this is going to work. Anyway, right. Don't forget, as we always do, we ask you to like, comment on, and share the stream to your social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon for alerts on new content. And as always, we thank you very much indeed for your support. And talking of support, if we could also point you in the direction of the Iron Supporting Food Bank charity to put a little bit of money into this particular fighting fund, which it operates in the Newham Borough area for families who are struggling to feed their children. Simple as that. And yeah, I'll put this in the live chat in a little bit, and you can click on it and do what you got to do. We thank you very much indeed for your support. Duke, you looking rather excited, my friend.
Yeah, as I said in the green room before we came out, Rob, I was coming up to get myself set up, and I mentioned to a couple of people in passing as I was coming up the stairs. I went to mention exactly what we're about to do, and I got told, yes, we fucking know. Fuck off. So, needless to say, I think I've banged on about this quite a lot to anyone that would listen over the last week or so.
And on and on and on and on.
I mean, listen, everyone knows who we've got on. Obviously, the title is there and everything else, and we've received a few questions, and I probably should go through. I should go through my phone and probably find the two that I've had asked. And before you disappear, do you have? Well, you've got your question already recorded, haven't you?
They're already there, mate. Don't you worry. They're sitting there.
Already there.
So all I've got to do is press a button. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, there's a substitution that's going to take place. Leaving the field is me, and replacing me is this fella here, Mr. Stuart Slater. How the devil are you?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the intro there, guys. Really, really, I haven't had that intro for a long time.
We aim to please. We aim to please. Well, as I say, I'm going to disappear, and I'm going to leave you two to run this Q&A. I'm going to press buttons in the background, and I might sort of cause some chaos in the background, but it's fine. It's fine. I've only been doing this how long now, Duke?
Been going about
18 months.
19 months, I think we're coming up on, Rob. Yeah, 19 months of talking too much. I think. What was our record stream? Obviously, we're not going that for tonight, Stuart. So don't worry. We're not going to raise
5 hours.
That was a 5-hour stream that we did, which was was that Hammer Time? That was a Hammer Time one, wasn't it?
Yes.
Where we
My wife was not best pleased with that one.
Yeah.
No,
when you go to the toilet and all that. When you go to the toilet.
Well, we dipped in and out. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
It was ourselves and one of the guys that was that's in the chat, and I think Jazz was there as well, wasn't it? It was a long old stream. We started out talking about one of the seasons, late 90s, I think, Rob, wasn't it? Late 90s seasons, and then spoke about whatever come to mind, Stuart, and we were there from just after 7:30 until just after midnight. Rob kept telling us he needed to go because his delightful wife had gone to bed and was teasing him, wasn't she, Rob? With some new bedtime wear, which he never got to see, Stuart, because he spent the night with us. I mean, I'm not saying it was a better night, but listen, it was a good night.
For those of you guys that are reading the live chat, as it says on the banner going across, get your questions into Stuart, and please put a Q at the start of your question. We'll do our best to get as many of them answers as we can. Obviously, we have a limited amount of time. We'll try and get them all answered, but, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, I'm going to disappear. Guys, enjoy.
I won't lie to you, Stuart. When Rob told me that this was going to happen, obviously we've met once before this, obviously at the meet and greet that you had with, was it Wardy, Matt Jarvis, and Trevor Sinclair, wasn't it? And I'll be honest, I'll quite happily tell everyone I proper fanboyed out. There There is a picture of you and I doing the round that that Russ Budden put together of me talking to you, and he put a love art around us, Stuart. He put a love art and sent it to our group chat, which yeah, I've not quite lived down. My partner, she's in the chat. She's rocked up, bless her. I'll be honest with you. This is a huge honour for me. I grew up watching you play. I've spoken many times about your goal against Everton in the FA Cup. I'm not going to cover that tonight. We've done that already. I've asked you my question based on that and the feelings and everything else. So obviously you played 141 games for the club at senior level. Only 11 goals. I say only. You scored 11 more goals than I'm ever going to score for my beloved club. I'm not gonna take that away from you. And obviously, your first game, if I remember rightly, Southampton. Your first start was against Southampton, wasn't it?
Yes, Southampton away.
And
yeah.
You found yourself up against a certain gentleman by the name of Russell Osman.
Correct. Yes.
It didn't go well, did it, Stuart?
No, not really. Yeah, Russell Osman. I watched him a few times at Ipswich because I was in between. I was sort of on the Suffolk and Essex border. So Ipswich and West Ham. When I was growing up, 7, 8, 9 years of age, it was either my mum and dad had tickets down there or get down to West Ham, and it was easier probably to get to Ipswich at the time. So I watched Russell Osman a few times, and he was a tough cookie. So when I made my debut, obviously I knew what probably I was going to expect because I'd watched him a few times, and sure enough, it was one of them. About 15 minutes into the first half, he knew it was my debut. He got his elbow up a little bit and crashed it into my ear. Blood was coming out my ear, and I didn't know nothing about it. Half time, didn't know what the score was, what was happening, and I've got a picture with all blood coming down out me on my white Avco shirt, and that came from my ear. The blood came from my ear, so that's how hard he must have hit me. And I was concussed, so I came off at half time because I didn't know where I was.
Absolutely clattered. I was talking to a guy. He came into the pub before we came up to start this, and he's got a question coming up, and he actually we were talking about your debut. We were talking about the clash, shall we say, and obviously you going off and it not being. I think, did we lose that game 4-0?
We did lose that 4-0. I can't remember but at the time.
Not the best of debuts for you, but obviously you went on, and from my personal experiences of watching you play, and we discussed earlier when we were talking at the meet and greet thing. You're only 9 years older than me, and it feels really strange for me that obviously when we met and obviously now that. It's not even a decade yet. I look up to you and I revere you in such a way. It's really quite strange for me that I'm kind of sat here now with one of my boyhood heroes having a conversation. I don't want to sound like I'm a fanboying out again. It's just for me. It's just it's crazy.
It is, yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, obviously, when you're growing up and when you're playing, and at the era that we played at, we didn't. We just thought we were just one of you guys, as I said, we were fortunate enough to play for the Hammers, and obviously that was it really. But until you're on the other side, being a fan, going to games, you don't realise the impact that players have during the whole of their career, people's lives, the fans' lives. You don't realise at the time.
Who was the first player that had an impact on you then? Saying that, obviously, you yourself with me and obviously Julian as the Julian Dix as we were talking beforehand. Who was the first player that you remember obviously being kind of in awe of, idolising, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, there was quite a few. I mean, obviously that 85. I mean, you're looking at Devonshire, you're looking at Brooklyn, because when I went to West Ham, I was starting to go there at 11, 12 years of age. And there wasn't a lot on TV, so I could only get down once every sort of half term because I was playing Saturdays and Sundays. So it was one of them that you play for your school team on a Saturday morning, you play for your county or district Saturday afternoon, and you play for your Sunday team Sunday. So it was very difficult for me to get down to watch any football at the time. So there wasn't many games on the TV apart from the big games. So when I did get down there in half terms, you look at the Devonshires, you look at the Brookings in that era at that time, Billy Bonds. They were the three that really stood out. I mean, and obviously it's easy for people to say that, but, obviously Trevor was playing for England at the time. Everyone knew about Devonshire, the way he took players on and was a crowd pleaser. And then you got Billy Bonds, the actual iconic person that, that everyone looked up to.
Listen, that being said, I'm not going to take up any more of the show of me asking questions or whatever. We've got more than enough. Rob warned me that we had quite a lot of questions, so we're going to go with this one. This is actually from my nephew, bless him, Callum.
Okay.
Who do you think was the best player from your time?
For West Ham, are we talking about really, Cam? Would that be? Or
let's do both. Let's go West Ham and in general. So the best West Ham player from your time and then in general.
We keep saying it. They had that a lot. I mean, that 85-86 team, I know it's been talked about a lot, but I was first year apprentice at the club, so I was there day in, day out, morning, afternoon. When we were kids, apprentices, we were there from 8:30 till probably 4:30, 5 o'clock. So, and we saw the standard of the players in that top team and that first team, and that was quite difficult to pick out anyone. But the McAvenny-Cotty partnership was great. I mean, Alan Dickinson, George Parrish, you got Gailey and Alvin, you got Ray Stewart. It was really difficult to pick out that team, but they were so close. I can remember going up to Everton like a lot of other people did, but all the staff on the books at West Ham. So whether you're a tea lady, whether you're a bootman, I mean, there weren't many, obviously. Apprentice, there was only sort of 9 apprentices, first and second years. So the staff was very, very small. But I remember we were all taken up on a Monday night to go to Everton. And, that was possibly going to be, it was so close, it was possibly going to be the title decider had Liverpool not beaten Chelsea on the Saturday. And to be so close, but yet so far, finishing third, it was, you could go through that whole team, that whole side and go, I like him. But, Billy Bonds as well, going off shot a little bit, what Billy Bonds, everyone talks about him. He was an absolute man's man. I had privilege to play with him slightly. I mean, not a lot, but then he was my manager. Obviously, when I was a young kid, he helped me out a lot as well. Ray Stewart, another guy there, Ray Stewart. I looked up to him massively because he gave up a lot of his time for me to sign for West Ham. He was a current first-team player at West Ham, and I was playing in Colchester for my Sunday side, Langham Lions. He gave up a Sunday morning because obviously there was a lot of clubs after me at the time, and came with Ronnie Gale, one of the scouts, who I owe a lot to for me getting down at West Ham. And he brought Ray Stewart along, and that's unheard of. A first-team player coming to watch the Sunday side football, giving up, it's not, it was about it was 45, 50 minutes away, maybe an hour away from Romford where Ray Stewart was living. Gave up his time, talked to me afterwards, talked to my parents afterwards. And I was, always forever grateful for Ray Stewart for that, And what a good player, what a great player as well.
It certainly was. So basically, what you're telling me is the fact I've got to see you in a West Ham shirt. Then I've got to find Ray. I've got to thank Ray Stewart for this, right? That's what you're saying.
Ray Stewart's got a lot to ask for. Yeah, brilliant he was.
and a great penalty on him. Great pen.
Yeah, brilliant.
Great pen.
Brilliant.
And then in general, who was who had a big influence on you? Then let's say. As outside of West Ham, who had a big influence on you and the way you played.
Liam Brady had a big influence on me as well, in more ways than one. But you look at, I mean, I watched a lot of the Ipswich team in the late 70s, Murin and Tyson. They were unbelievable players, skillful players. And I sort of emulated, I wasn't going to be big, I wasn't going to be powerful, I wasn't going to be strong. I had to work at that, but I wanted to sort of emulate my game on a skillful player, and those two were really, really skillful in the 70s. So I watched a lot of them because they were quite local and it was on the TV local. And they were brilliant, brilliant players. And then obviously when I got to West Ham at 12, Alan Devonshire was another player that I liked. But playing against probably the biggest one was Eric Cantona. You know, look at what he did for Leeds, and then going to United when United hadn't won anything for so many. You know, he just had that aura, and he had everything about him. Everything, you know, he could right foot, left foot, bring the ball down, powerful, strong, score goals, skillful, everything that he had. You know, he just emulated what, you know, a world-class player was at that time.
Well, there you go, Callum. There's your answers. I'll be honest with you, Callum probably hasn't got a clue who you are. He's my nephew. He's, how old is he? 17, I think he is. Bless him.
Google Tyson Murin. I mean, obviously you don't heard of Cantona, but
yeah. Well, you know what? I have to say, one abiding memory for Cantona was sticking the boot in on a fan. I have to say that's the one thing when someone says to me, "Oh, Eric Cantona," my mind goes straight to the fan and sticking the boot in on the fan. Was it a Palace, wasn't it?
It was a Palace.
So the next question I've got is from someone you spoke to before. I remember you've done your My Hammer's 11. So we've got a question from Russ Budden. Casey, do you want to press that button?
I have a question for Mr. Slater. The question is, what was your pre-match routine? Did you have a superstition? Did you put on one sock before the other? Did you only walk backwards through the front door? What did you do? Did you have a special superstition that you would do before every game?
I did indeed. Yeah. I used to go, especially at home games, because we had more footballs, but I would go there was a little gym at the back of obviously our changing rooms and where the baths were, and it was a really matty little gym. The carpet, it wasn't even carpet, nylon, it was up, and there was a wall, and so it probably was only about 30-40 yards long by about 20 yards wide, and then it led into the players bar, where you did, obviously after the game you invite your guests. But I would always go there after I got my gear on and get a ball and keep the ball up. I would go for 500 times, right foot, left foot. That would take about four minutes, and then I would do some volleying against the wall for a couple of minutes, just to get my touch going, to make sure that obviously first touch that I received, you know, hopefully it was half decent, because I realised at that time, you know, that your first touch gives you time. You know, even if it's a tenth of a second is massive in football. It's massive. So it just gives you that, and that's why I prided myself on my first touch. It was so key for me, and I just want to enhance it. I know my touch was good, but I just needed to keep on top of it. And on those probably pitches at Upton Park, you know, you needed to have a half decent. When people talk about, you know, obviously when we were talking about the West Ham way, we were attacking football in 1 and 2 touch, keeping the ball on the floor as much as we could do, you know, to play like we did on those pitches, and to play some of the stuff the players that played before me and after me and all that, when the pitch was so bobbly, trying to keep the ball on the floor was just, you know, credit to all the players, and, you know, obviously John Lowe, Ron Greenwood, and all the managers that had him, especially, you know, John and Ron. That was their philosophy.
Well, you mentioned the pitch there, and I wasn't going to bring it up. I said earlier we weren't going to bring it up, but your goal against Everton, I was talking to Paul downstairs, one of my customers, again, has got a question. We were talking about the pitch that night, and it was cut up. It was the pitches back then, Stuart. They're not like the carpets they play on now, and they are almost perfect. Some of them, the Premier League's, you know, probably some of the best pitches in the world. What would you have given just, I mean, I know probably start of the season, even then back then the pitches weren't immaculate like they are every day now. Do you think playing on these sort of pitches, these that they play on today, would have enhanced your game, would have made your kind of the way you played running with the ball?
I think so. As I said, you go down on that pitch down at the London Stadium, and you go, Mike, it is like a carpet. Even we're starting in August at Upton Park. There'd be a little bubble here and there, and it's the start of the season. Come sort of 6 weeks into the season, it's all cut up, and the bubbles. I've got the videos, got loads of videos, and on YouTube, and you go, how did you play on that? And you were embarrassed if the ball jumped over your foot and all that, and obviously the fans are going, giving you a little bit of stick, which they were entitled to because you're a professional footballer, but you were supposed to control that. But nowadays there's no excuse for a poor touch. You get the occasional bubble and all that, but in our day there was, we didn't even really blame the pitches. We're going, Corey, you're a professional footballer, you got to deal with that. Nowadays, they have got no excuse whatsoever for a poor touch.
I'd love to see again, reverse what I've just said there about you playing on today's pitches. I'd love to see, the likes of a Ronaldo or a Bruno Fernandes at United, Kevin De Bruyne at City. These sort of players playing on the types of pitches that you guys had to. I mean, it wasn't a million years ago that I remember Chelsea at Stamford Bridge playing Charlton, and it wasn't even grass. It was like they were playing down on the beach. There was more sand on that pitch covering up the waterlog than there was actually grass. I'd love to have seen what today's players, maybe take them out of the Premier League and take them over to, over to Hackney Marshes or up to more local to me, Cheltenham Park or those sort of pitches.
It just goes to show you. I mean, obviously, you look at Alan Devonshire, one of the best, ball carriers that we ever had. Albeit, probably we were a bit lucky. The wide players, those areas were a little bit better than the central areas. But even so, what would he have been like on a pitch like we have today? My goodness, he was a hell of a player, unbelievable player. And I only saw him after his knee operation, really. He would be absolutely $1 million. Absolutely $1 million.
See, I was being polite and said, watching you on there, you went Devonshire. That's fine. I can understand that. You watched him firsthand. You were up close and personal with Dev and watched him play. Which, I go back. You mentioned earlier about the '86 season being, the boys of '86 and everything else, and it is the first real season that sticks in my mind. Obviously, I would have been eight back in 80 and watched that, and then there was obviously the following seasons, and the McAvenny, the Cotty partnership, and we're going to come on to Brady, and he actually played in the first game that I ever went to at Upton Park. You didn't play, unfortunately. It was against Swindon. No, you weren't there for that one.
Did you? Was I dropped?
I don't know. I'll be honest, I didn't look into it, but I remember Martin Allen scored our goal, and there was an injury to Fraser Digby, was the goalkeeper. He got a bit of a kick on the head, and there's a lot of blood. And I remember being part of the crowd singing "There's Only One Terry Butcher." That was my first game at Upton Park, and obviously, sadly, you didn't play in that one. I actually don't think I got to see you at Upton Park play, which was quite disappointing. I just had to settle for seeing you score some great goals on telly. Rob, what else we got? Who's next up, my man? From Budgie. He's got his own channel over at Green Street Elites. If anyone watching hasn't subscribed, go over and subscribe to Budgie's channel. His question is, Stuart, you had great vision, but what was your favourite assist at West Ham, if you can remember it?
Yeah, I think we're going back to Jimmy Quinn, the great Jimmy Quinn, who scored a few goals for us. Jimmy Quinn. I can remember us playing Sheffield United at Upton Park. Once again, another mid week game over the lights. Fantastic. Bobbly pitch. We ended up winning 5-0. Jimmy Quinn got a hat-trick. And he, to this day, we see each other, can't believe that he'd never got man of the match for scoring a hat-trick. I set 4 up, I think it was. But there was one assist that I gave him, and it was, it was on the plate for him. But at those 5 goals, as I said, I created, I think, 4 of them. People talk about the Everton game. If people were at the Sheffield United game when we won 5-0, they said 4 assists, 3 goals from Jimmy Quinn. He never got man of the match. I got 10 out of 10 for the match and shoot. And sometimes you look at them and go, hang on a minute, I got 10 out of 10 for that. That was my assist a day. There was a couple of times where I've slotted Jimmy in. Jimmy Quinn was an unbelievable finisher. He didn't get a lot. Well, I think we spoke about. I think he scored 300 goals in his football career. 300 goals plus. So there was a couple of assists but he made them himself. But I just slotted him in a couple of times. But that game sticks out for me being the assist king that day.
The assist king. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to rattle through some questions because I'm very conscious. We've been going 27 minutes and I've probably asked more questions than anyone else that's. And we're not here about me. They come to see you. So the next question we got on video is from the guy we substituted out earlier. And I'll be honest with you, you're better company than him. But we're going to let him back in to ask his question. Rob, hit play.
I'm here at the Kennington Oval. That behind me is a shirt from the first FA Cup final in 1872, which was held here. My question to Stuart Slater is, what is your first memory of the FA Cup, and did that inspire you to become a professional footballer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going back a long time because in our day, the FA Cup final was the whole day. It was on TV. You could be on BBC, ITV, only 4 channels, BBC 2. I don't even think Channel 4 was then when I was growing up. I think it was 3 channels. And 2 of the channels, BBC 1 and ITV, no Sky, no Netflix, no nothing. That was and the whole day, to get to an FA Cup final, you had the morning, the preview, the game, and the after on both channels. It was just one of the most watched events that you could get in football at that time when I was growing up. So I started, I think, 77, definitely 78 when Ipswich won it, because obviously we were local Ipswich. My mum and dad went and my sister went. I didn't go. I was still only 7 at the time, but Roger Osborne scored. Then the 79 game, and then the 80 game, and then not that thereafter, all the way up until 85, even when, that was when I was 16 and I obviously started my apprenticeship at the club. They were big days. You can go through all of them. Alan Taylor, obviously what he did in, 75? Trevor Brookie in an 80. 75 was just a little bit too. I was only 5 at the time. So it was probably the 77, 78 and that afterwards. But obviously Trevor Brookie scoring that, the headed goal that we all talk about. That was great. Obviously the Arsenal goal with Liam Brady, obviously, because I became really close with Liam Brady, what he did in the 79 Cup final? I think 3-2, was it? Arsenal,
I think so, yeah.
Not that I was a fan of anyone, but they were the only games ever on TV. So that gave you a massive buzz. The exposure that you got on those days, millions of people were watching it. It was just, feet up watching that the whole day. And I never, ever sat down. I was always on the football field. I was always trying to improve. But that day, I just obviously watched it and mesmerised from it. And then afterwards, I was up the field. Because I was OCD, it's trying to be a professional footballer, and that's probably why I've got all the elements that I have now. Where hips, knees, Achilles, you name it. Now my body's falling apart. 53, and but I was OCD. I just wanted to be the best, or I wanted to make the grade of professional, professional footballer. Nothing else was going to be in my way.
Well, there you go. Kent's come in. Kent is our resident football guru. If there's anything we don't know when we're doing one of these videos, and if Kent's in the chat, you can guarantee within a minute, Kent will throw up the answer to anything we don't know. Kent is that oracle, absolute oracle. But I know what you mean about obviously the FA Cup. It was like you said, it was a daily thing. It would start at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. It was, it was 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday, and it was a full day. Like you say, the family around. I mean, my dad wasn't a huge football fan, so it was more, me glued watching, and then like you say, afterwards in the local park or even in the local garages around the back of the houses, trying to recreate what you'd seen. Half an hour or an hour beforehand, wasn't it? It was
absolutely
trying to recreate that Ricky Villa goal or like you say the Alan Sunderlands and stuff. Rob, what's up next, my man? We've got a question from Kent. Oh, there it is. I know my favourite goal you scored for West Ham. We're not covering it. We're not talking about it. But what was yours?
You were right in what you said in the preview. Only 11 goals. That was a disappointment to me throughout my whole career. I think I scored a few goals in the FA Cup. I'm not sure how many I did, or the League Cup, because we had great runs. We had an FA Cup semi-final, 2 League Cup semi-finals, a League Cup quarter-final. I probably played about 30, 40 games just in the Cups in those years. But I scored a goal against Everton, not the FA Cup one, the one up at Goodison Park. Once again, where you talk about having a lucky streak against teams, I had a lucky streak against Everton, and Everton were the top team. They were the Man Cities, the Liverpools of our, of today in the era that we were there. So they were a big club. They were well supported. They had great players, great manager, and we ended up getting beat 3-1. But I think it was only 18, 19 at the time. But I nicked the ball from the halfway line and I went round Mountfield or Derek Mountfield or Ratcliffe. 2 unbelievable centre halves, pivotal to all their success they had in the 80s, 90s. And I've ran from the halfway line and I beat Neville Southwell again, who, once again, one of the best goalkeepers that I ever played against. And fortunate enough, I got a couple against him. But that one up at Goodson was a real, a real nice one.
I mean, listen, sorry, I'm going there. The goal in the FA Cup. I mean, there's a question coming up, and I'm gonna hold myself off from making the statement. The statement. I've made the statement before, and Russ Budden has mentioned it to you. But that goal against Everton was. It sounds really stupid because in the previous game, in the cup, Everton had actually beaten Liverpool after the replay, hadn't they? I think it was 4-4. Then they went to a replay, and I remember going into school the following day after you'd bagged that. In my mind, you picked the ball up on. In my mind, you picked the ball up on the edge of our area. You ran 60, 70 yards, beating the entire Everton team twice. You cut inside and you put an absolute pinpoint accurate shot into the bottom bins. Whereas in reality, you actually picked the ball up about 25, 30 yards out. And I think you stuck it. Was it Watson's legs? I think you stuck it through someone's legs, didn't you? As they lunged across, and it kind of bobbles in. Doesn't matter. Still my favourite goal that you scored.
Yeah, that's business.
that Mandela effect. I see it completely differently in my mind. But I remember going into school the next day and claiming that we were better than Liverpool because we'd beaten Everton because you'd scored and Everton had beaten Liverpool the previous round. I'd like to say it sticks out in my mind as just a great memory watching that watching that goal. And I've got to be honest, since Rob and I have done this channel, I've gone back and I've watched it. And as I say, it doesn't happen anything like I remembered it back when I was, a kid. But it's that Mandela effect.
Yeah.
Next video question we've got is from Budgie, Green Street Elite Budgie. So, Rob, give us a button press.
Hi there, Budgie from Green Street Elites, and I've got a question for Stuart Slater. When you left the club, which was very disappointing for some of us fans, I've got to say, when you left the club, was it by mutual agreement, or were you forced out of the club, or did you push for the move? I've never really been sure of what the situation was with that, so if you could clarify that for me, Stuart, I'd be much appreciated. Anyway, don't forget to like the stream and share. Come on, you irons.
Good question. Yeah, as I said, I'm obviously able to speak about it a little bit more now, but long story. I'll go through it. I mean, obviously, Liam Brady, what a player when he joined us. He was a superstar when he joined us. He was one of the biggest players in world football. And I'm not saying that lightly. I mean, when we were growing up, the Italian Serie A was the league to play in. Not our league, not the Spanish league. It was the Italian league. It just obviously been a Juventus. He won a title. Juventus. He wore the number 10 shirt, which was really, iconic. He scored I think he scored the penalty to win them the title, and he then moved and number 10 Platini took his number 10 jersey. He moved to another team in Italy, and then a couple of years later, he had enough. And he hit it off so well with John Lyle. He came back, and West Ham, I don't know what age, 31, 32. And we couldn't believe we had him. One of the most iconic players, So we formed a great relationship, me and Liam. I was only a young kid at that time. He was a senior player, and he saw me train day in, day out, play week in, week out. And he's going, Cordier, you're not bad. He took me under his wing, said, you're not bad. West Ham at the time were paying me minimal money, playing in the first team. I think it was £140 a week. And I was playing regular in the first team. And I was keeping players out that were on thousands. So he's come up to me and he said, look, I'm going to do you a favour. Going to go in and ask for more money for you. I'm like, really? Can you do that? He said, yeah, of course I can. He said, look, I'm not going to get you the best because you don't deserve it. You're a young kid, but you deserve more than what you're getting. So I said, okay, cool. So he got me double, I think it was 350, not double, just a little bit more, 350 quid. So I was so happy with that. So I couldn't thank him enough. It wasn't about money, but it was about being recognised and not being taken the mickey out. About a year, 9 months later, I'm now pushing England B21s. And for, people have mentioned me. And still, so Liam's going, hang on, I've got to go in again for you. I said, really? He said, no, I'm going to go in. He said, they've got to pay you accordingly. I'm not going to get you the best deal because you don't deserve, obviously you've got to have a couple of 2 for a year. You've got to play at the top for a long time to get. But I realised that it's short. So, okay. Anyway, he got me a great deal. I think it was a sort of 60 grand a year, something, which was fantastic in those days, for someone that was 19, 20, 20, I think 21. But it was comparable. Anyway, so then obviously when Liam retired, he said, I'm going to look after me permanently. So he never charged 1 penny whatsoever. And I was absolutely delighted that he could look after me for what he did for me. He had a year out, and then he obviously got approached to be the Celtic manager. So in that time, he said, look, I can't look after you no more. I've got to put you onto my best mate, which was Fintan Jury. So then West Ham offered me another new deal, 4-year deal, which was unbelievable. And I went in with Liam's mate, Fintan Jury, and I had a pen in my hand and about to sign the contract, and I got told not to sign it. Obviously, the money was fantastic. He just pulled me out and just said, look, don't be too hasty. Obviously, just take your time. They'll come back. Keep your options open a little bit. I said, well, this is my club. I loved it. As I said, there was a little bit of an issue for me playing through the middle instead of playing wide. But like you alluded to, I needed to score more goals. So there was a little bit issue, but there was never an issue staying at the club. There was an issue about my positional status. Anyway, so that 4-year deal was the best offer that the club ever offered. So over the couple of weeks, 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, I'm going to the agent, Jury, is anything on my deal? And he said, no, not yet. He said, don't be. And that went on for a few months. And then obviously, because West Ham thought I weren't signing, they withdrew the offer. So obviously, it was a little bit of a. So I'm thinking, oh dear, do they not really want me? But at that time, West Ham were going, hang on a minute, it's a fantastic deal. I didn't sign it. He doesn't want to stay. But, there was an agent in the middle that was sort of trying to get
in the Euro. Yeah.
And at that time, had I been on my own, I would have signed a 4-year deal at West Ham. But an agent was involved. And so there was a bit, I was absolutely gutted. And I've spoken about this before. Celtic, a massive club. And I'm grateful that I went to Celtic because, it is a massive club. Had I had my own way, it would have been stayed at West Ham. Things didn't go well at Celtic either. Liam was the manager. And, I don't try to have regrets because I had my son. I met my ex-wife up in Scotland, and I've got a son through that. So you never look at regrets. But the 4-year deal, had I not been with anybody else, it was just me, that would have been signed. And possibly I could have been playing 300-400 games for the club at that time. And so there was never any intention for me to leave. It was just sort of the way things were and panned out. And it was a missed opportunity.
Do you, again, just hearing you say it, I mean, to be honest, I've heard you talk about that before. We were, obviously spoke about that at the meet and greet thing that we were at. Do you think there was, I don't want to kind of twist, I don't want to kind of put the twist on your relationship with Liam, obviously. Do you reckon Brady was in the Euro and having that little bit of a conversation with Jury saying, don't let him sign yet, wait a minute, I want to bring him north, hold up a second. Do you reckon there might have been that conversation?
100%, Joe. I mean, now I'm only doing a little bit of coaching. And if you've seen a player and you played with a player and you're a manager, you want people that you trust and you believe in, and you want your best players. And that's my biggest accolade in football. I think one of the best players that's ever, the Irish player, but obviously Arsenal player, Juventus player. What he did, he wanted me more than any other player. And unfortunately, West Ham could have got 3 million for me instead of, I don't know, 1.75 or 2 million. He offered 3 million for me when he first joined. It was a year after he got me, but there's no doubt in my mind that was what was said to Finton Jury that and I think there was other players that possibly at the club that when obviously I came back for pre-season, I had food poisoning and I didn't start well the pre-season, and I think there was a couple of players that got into Liam's ear roll then and said, look, this is the best time to get him because obviously the contract has been brought up, we're going to sort it out. And I think people told Liam to get me at the time. So as I said, I can't knock what Liam did there because I would do the same. I would want to enhance my management career sort of thing. And unfortunately it didn't really work out for Liam or myself. Well, it didn't work out, and but you live and die by your signings. And unfortunately, I got injured at that time, and probably West Ham did see the best of me because after that, every year after that, after leaving West Ham, my Achilles and calves were a problem throughout my career, and I was missing 12 to 14 weeks of the season every year. If the sports science and the medical staff now, what it is today, they would have put it right. But at that time, we had one physio. We didn't even have a doctor, only at home games, and that was it.
Well, you say there, 3 million quid, you would have ended up going for more than, what was it, Gaza left to join from Newcastle to Spurs, and from what TC left us to go to, move up north. It would have been bigger deals than them if you'd left. So
yeah, I mean that's why obviously you know, I can't get a bigger accolade than that Liam had seen me and played with me and trained with me for 3 or 4 years and put his neck on the block at a big club like Celtic and, you know, record signing. You know, I was a record sign there, which was a big burden for me anyway to carry because of the history of the club at Celtic. It was, you know, it's massive. So,
all right, we're going to rush on. Next up, Rob, who we got in the live chat this time? So we've got Mark. Do I remember that Stuart had the hammers and some brickwork at home, or have I imagined that? Is he right? Did you have it?
Yeah, that's correct. My dad was a builder. God bless my dad. He's not with me, but he was my biggest, you know, if it weren't for me dad. But he loved football and he was a bit bricklayer. But him and his partner, they built a house. And obviously in the brickwork, I was fortunate enough to earn that sort of money when I was playing, when Liam sorted you know, that I'd never spent my money and he was in the property and we built a house and he put the hammers in the brickwork and I had to sell it after my divorce, but I go by it from time to time when I'm at my mum's. I'm at my mum's now. When I'm in the Sudbury area, I go and visit it just to see if it comes up for sale again because I think I would put a bid in for it. The nostalgia, yeah.
Well, I'm going to have a quick word with the missus. We're going to see if we can get some money out of the bank, and I'm going to keep an eye on that and see if it does come up for grabs. I'm going to try and get in there before you because I want that just in the brickwork. Rob, what we got next? Let's keep them flowing.
Hi, Stuart. My question, excuse me. My question is, what do you think was your best performance for West Ham? So, not your favourite game or biggest win, but your actual best personal individual performance. Because I know a lot of people point out the Everton quarter final, FA Cup quarter final back in '91, I believe. But I think it was a season before. We beat Sheffield United 5-0 in a midweek game, and although you never scored, I think Jimmy Quinn got a hat-trick that night, but you was absolutely on fire, and that personally I think that was your best performance, but I wondered what you thought on that. Thanks.
Yeah, we alluded to that earlier, didn't we? Yeah, I can remember. I think Chris Wilder was the fullback as well, and I think I've told this story a couple of times that Chris Wilder, at the end of the game at the Sheffield United and Middlesbrough manager now, who's done so well, shook my hand and he was right back and he said, "That's the closest he's got all night," you know, and that was, you know, shaking my hand. And, you know, there was West Ham fans chanting Slater for England, you know, the West Ham, you know, that was one of those nights where, you know, on my day, that Everton game, the Sheffield United game, possibly I could get the game by the scruff of my neck. And I wasn't a wide player. This is where I go and duty. Before my goal scoring record throughout my youth career, all the way down, up even into the youth team, was really, really, good. And I was absolutely gutted. I think it was 1 in 3, 1 in 4 when I came into the team. And then when I played wide, I became more of a creator rather than a goal scorer. You know, I never really felt that I could get into the areas that I needed to do when I was a wide player, because when I was up front, I could influence my own performance. I could go short, could go in behind, I could go inside right, inside left, and get the opportunities and chances. When I played wide left or when I played wide, you had your defensive duties, and I wasn't lazy. I'd get back and track back, but when you get me in the final third, I was still recovering from tracking back, and that's the way, you know, I was built. I was built for short, sharp spurts and not those lung bursting all the time. I mean, I could do it from time to time, but I couldn't get in the areas. I couldn't get in those goal scoring opportunities because the majority of the goals are scored inside the box, and you know, I struggled to get in the box when I was playing wide.
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest with you, I used to watch it. I loved seeing you out. Like you alluded to earlier when you said about your positional placement was obviously a contention when you were obviously in the process of that new contract. Out on the wings. I mean, I mentioned earlier to Paul, guys, got a video coming up shortly. Everyone talks about Messi and the ball gluing stuck to their feet. Messi, Ronaldo, when they ran. I felt the same with you when I used to watch you play. The ball, it was like it was glued to your feet. It was like you had an affinity with the ball when you ran with the ball. It was great to watch. It was something that sticks with me. You know, everyone bangs on about Messi and Ronaldo, and rightly so, two of the greatest players of a generation. But I saw you do that, you know, all them years ago. You used to be able to run with the ball at your feet and on worse pitches than what they play on, Stuart. We touched on that earlier. So, you know, I used to love seeing you out in the wing and taking on players. Rob, who we got up next? Mark says, what brought about the all too late turnaround in forming John Lyles last season?
Yeah, I think I was just coming through them. Obviously, John was just an incredible person. Yeah, I owe so much to him as well. You know, there's a few people, but John was brilliant. He saw things in me when I was a young kid that obviously other managers might have said, right, he's too small, too light. But I think he was under a bit of pressure, John. You know, I don't know, 33 years at the club at the time, and I think there were rumours that, you know, if we do go sort of down, there possibly, though it was a shock, he might go, and sure enough, he did go. So I think he had that aura about him that players want to play for him. You look at the older players at the time. Well, they weren't older players, but players that have been with him, the Devonshires, the Alvin Martins, the Billy Bonds. Everyone obviously played for themselves, but they played for him. We all played for him. You know, obviously we didn't want anything. We felt it if we got beat, because obviously right at the end of his, because he'd been there for so long, and sometimes you don't appreciate what you've got at that time. And he took it all upon himself, the stress and the strain. You know, he was just an incredible person, and you know, we would go out there and perform. And yeah, it was too late at that time. I think I was just coming in. I started off with John, and then he kept dipping me in and out. I think we played the Southampton and Charlton, I think, and the start wasn't very good. I had injuries, and that's why I got thrusted in. He got some players back, but yeah, I can't really remember too much about that, because all I remember about that era at the time when we got relegated was, you know, it was a shock that the Kearns, who had been with John for a long time, voted against him. One of them voted against him to get him out, and we were all absolutely gobsmacked and shocked. And you know, that's where I obviously went down, and I only remember that. I can't remember the upturn in form before, you know, the end of the season, just before the end of the season so much. I need to be you know, I remember the start. Obviously the Southampton, the Charlton, and I dipped in and out that season. John dipped me in and out, obviously because of my first full season, and he didn't want to put the pressure on me too much. But I know for the fact that the players would absolutely, you know, when you talk about players playing for managers, there weren't many players that I played with in the John Lye era that didn't want to play for him. We all want to play for him and get the results, mainly for obviously the fans and him, because he was just an absolute legend, an iconic figure at West Ham. Even now, when you talk about him, all those players that played for him in the era that we did, just got nothing about admiration for him. You know, the knowledge of the game, the respect, the aura, kindness, hardness, firmness, you name it. He had everything about him that he could, you know, he was a proper manager.
I mean, you just said there you're not sure what changed the upturn. If you go back through our video, Stuart, on Full to Rhyme, we do a little series called Hammer Time. I'm sure we've covered that season. Go back, have a little watch. You'll probably hear us talk about it. Yeah. Little plug there, Rob. I hope you like it. Hammer Time of our lives, we call it. Go on, go back. It was Andy Marv's little idea. Bless him, he was in the chat earlier. Rob, we got the next video question from Paul.
Good evening, Mr. Slater. How are you doing? Just a quick question. As a youth player breaking through into the West Ham team in 88-89, I'd really like to know what nights out down at Stringfellows with Mr. McAvenny and co were like. I think we'd all love to know. Yours truly, Mr. Paul Stewart. Come on, you irons.
Paul Stewart.
Lucky.
There's a name drop.
Stewart at Tottenham. Yeah. Fortunately for me, Joe, I was a young lad, 18 years of age. I never got involved in all that. I was lucky. Oh dear. Frank, oh my goodness, he could go out every night and still perform. And I think the joke was that when Frank wasn't very good in training, it had an early night. So every time, so we would say to Frank, "You got to get out because you come in at 2:00 and he's still sort of buzzy and all that, and 10:00 he's flying and all that, and then he'll sleep all the." So that was probably the job. But I was fortunate that I never got involved in all that because I was probably only 18 at the time, and I was just coming into the first team, and I was still in the apprentice change room, and I can remember when you were a young kid in that era, you had to ask for permission to get into the first team training ground, or if you're delivering kit or you're delivering brutes, that was okay. You could never ever, if you weren't doing anything else, there was no way that you could go in that change room, and it was always through to the multi gym and the ash. So you'd have to go around the and ask for permission if you could go through, and so I was fortunate, but I think it was quite lively. Frank's a great guy, and he's got some great stories, and yeah. He was downstream fellas quite a bit, but yeah, what an incredible player.
You got lucky to avoid it.
Lucky to avoid it, yes.
We say lucky. I mean, probably as an 18-year-old lad, you might have enjoyed that kind of aspect of it.
Path though there. No, I don't think so. I might have gone down the wrong path and might not have made it. I mean, and that's where I say to every single person, yes, you got one life, but I hadn't made it at the time, and Frank had obviously came down from Scotland, and he was making his ways down. I was still a young lad, and if I'd have been drinking, womanizing, and all that, my focus was on being a professional footballer, even then. And I know you have to, but that's why I was so single-minded that I didn't want any distractions. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to play at the highest level that I possibly could, and you have to. Be disciplined and have the. Maybe that was boring, and that's probably why I am a little. But I was single focused, and I probably might have not made it if I'd have gone down a different path.
Well, listen, it ain't a bad thing. I mean, it's a different story nowadays, isn't it? With a social media and everything, you can't get away with anything. You can't even walk out of a bar and blow your nose without paparazzi being there or anything else. That was kind of different era back then. Next up, I think we got Mark. There we go. What was your nickname? Peter Hackers was unprintable. Give me some time. What was your nickname?
So it was Chopper. Chopper.
It was.
So yeah, I wasn't renowned for my tackling. And we were doing the one-on-one. John Lowell loved the one-on-one keep ball, man-to-man keep ball when you got beat on a Saturday. So that was quite intense and hard. So I had Paul Hilton. Paul Hilton was 6'4", and he was a tough cookie, to be honest. He obviously, unfortunate, he had loads of injuries with us 10 years, but he was a tough cookie. So I think John was obviously paired me against him, so that I was going to get whacked a few times and see if I could take it because I was getting whacked. But I got on the other end. As I said, Paul Hilton was quite a long-legged and all that, and it was quite intense, the training. And John encouraged people to, get your tackles in and all that. And I thought, geez, if I don't get my tackles in, John's going to have a little dig at me because that's what we needed at the game at the weekend, because that's why we used to do it on a Monday, because we weren't competitive enough. So the amount of times that I absolutely smashed Paul Hilton. And he's, he came up to me and he go, "What are you doing? You've never made a tackle in your life." He said, "You're a ball player and you're kicking me left, right, and centre. It's in training and all that, and you're chopping me down." And that just absolutely stayed with me. He called me Chopper from that, and it stuck.
I mean, listen, it ain't a bad nickname. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like you made a career out of it.
No.
But we'll rattle through some more, and I'm conscious of the time. I know we've got several more questions. Rob, let's rattle through. What you got for me?
I have another question. What was your favourite match day meal, your pre-match meal? What did you have? Were you a chicken and beans type person, or was you a full roast? What would you have pre-match?
Yeah, that varied. That varied from when I started to when I finished, really. I mean, I can remember the boys having steak. I wasn't a big steak eater, but Dixie, you'd have a steak before a game, 12 o'clock, pre-match dinner, and we're playing at 3 o'clock. I wasn't a steak eater, but it was beans on toast, scrambled egg on toast. Then I went into a bit of chicken. Then you went into a bit of pasta. So the end of my career was getting more sports. You need a little bit of pasta, you need a little bit of chicken, you need a little bit of this, you need a little bit, something quite light, but something with carbs, something with a bit of protein, more carbs than protein, really, because obviously you needed carbs to perform, but you needed a bit of protein. That was just starting to come into it when I was finishing, but it was baked beans, scrambled eggs, obviously steaks, heavy dinner when we started. Just get as much food in as you can at the time, but there was no research at that time. And I think, as I say, John Lyle tried to introduce it in 87, 88, the sports science with a lady, and she was brilliant, but no one really took to her because it was a thing that no one had already done. And that's where John was. He was light years above everybody else, you're talking 80s that he tried to do that, introduce it, and, probably it weren't the right time, but yeah.
Well, it's like you say, it's everything's changed. I mean, your career, as you said earlier, with the injuries you had, might have been a slightly different story if it had been now. I mean, I was talking to someone earlier about Ibrahimovic's knee injury that he picked up at United. He was back within 6-8 months. You do a cruciate ligament back when you played. It was the career end, wasn't it?
Yeah, career threatening.
Gacy, what we got next, my dear man? Ken says, in the modern game, what player would you say you was most like Stuart style-wise? I know my answer to this. I made this comment when you were on Russ Budden's show once. Really? I know where I sit with this. Yeah, I know where I sit with this, but let's hear your one first.
That's a good question. Oh dear. People used to say when I played wide, and like you've alluded to, and even Graham Taylor, I was pleasing to the eye. So I was a bit of an entertainer, but where was my end product at the time? At the end of it, at the end of my career, where's your goals? Where's your assists? And I think it would be a little bit like that at the minute. I'm just trying to think. There's a lot of wide players out there that don't get the goals like they should do at the minute. Grealish, I'm not as good as Grealish, but he obviously he likes to do a little bit of showboat, and he gets more goals and more assists than I do, but he could do more. I'm not saying that, but that's from me. I wouldn't be at that caliber. God dear. Who would you say then, Stu?
Listen, I compared you to our very own right now. With Jared Bowen.
Yes.
I compared to Jared Bowen currently. The way you like to, the runs you make.
He's got more goals than me. He scores more goals than me, though.
Hey, listen, different game nowadays, Stuart. Different game. I'm not even going to, but that's who you reminded me of, or that's who he reminds me of, should I say, with regards. He loves running with the ball at his feet. He loves that man in front of him cutting in. Although opposite sides of the pitch, the cutting in and having that shot. That's I don't know who Ken goes with, but that's where I'm at with you. I think you're very much a Jared Bowen style player.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he scores more goals, more assists, but yeah.
I'm happy. Bringing that up. I only mentioned it in passing.
No, because that was, we always spoke about it when my dad was alive. Why? How can I score all those goals when I'm a kid growing up and all that? Don't score goals.
Mark just threw up there. 2 runners on Morecambe and Wise. Who was your favourite?
Oh dear God! They didn't watch Morecambe White. I mean, I watched it a little bit, but I wasn't into. Do you know? I was probably a little bit like that now. I don't watch a lot of TV. I watch a bit of football, sport, and all that. But that's why my attention. I've got OCDs. I think attention span goes out the window. You've done well getting me for an hour and a bit, sort of thing. No, it was all sport. I love watching documentaries, but nowadays because I've had to slow down the last sort of 5 years, I've started to sit down and watch a little bit of documentaries, TVs, and all that. But in that day, I was just, honestly, I live for football. I live for football. There was my only downtime was when I went to bed. I was wanting to be, stronger, quicker, more flexible if I could. I was just loved me football. Absolutely addicted to football.
Fair enough. I've got 5 questions lined up in the quick start chat. So we're going to rattle these ones off quickly. I don't know whether Rob's got... he's having trouble with his internet, God bless him. So we're going to rattle through these quickly. Mark says here, can you return onto the channel with Liam Brady for company? I'm not quite sure we're on the level of Liam Brady right now.
Liam, I'd love to see Liam. I've got the utmost respect for Liam.
He's a great player. I mean, we got him at what, 31, 32, didn't we? But he was still.
That's my biggest accolade. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That is my biggest accolade in football. That Liam Brady wanted me more than any other player that he played with, seen or anything like that. And he put his neck on the line, like I would do if I was a manager now. If I was a manager at non-league, I'd want the players that I know or the best players. So. Yeah, I've got nothing but respect for Liam, but yeah, it could have been done a little bit better. I think he could have said, "Look, Stu, keep at West Ham, stay at West Ham. I know what you're like as a person. Sign the 4-year deal. You're quite a homely family person. He possibly could have done that, knowing the situation at Celtic wasn't a great situation to be in, and he knew that at the time." When within a year, because the club were in financial ruin, and we probably ruined them at the time. So,
Ken actually just came in and said, although you were quicker than him, but Smith Rowe at Arsenal has shades of Slate's.
Cool, I'm happy with that. Yeah, he's a decent player, isn't he? God, dear, what
Good player.
Yeah.
Cyber Mo asks, do you think we can win the Conference League this season?
There's no reason why. Well, I mean, obviously, what we did last year against the, better team. Dare I say it? I mean, you look at some of those teams in that league. There's some decent teams in there. We've got the squad. I mean, we haven't really talked about obviously the season so far, but the players that are coming in are obviously going to take time to gel and time to fit in, and that's what Moyes is doing, and he's trying to find his best combination. But you've got a deep enough squad to do that now. So I'm hoping that we can go as far as we can.
We got another video question from Steve. Casey, all yours. Press the button.
Hiya, Stuart. My question is really simple. If there was one thing you could change in your career, what would it be?
Good question.
Yeah, I would say be injury free. Be injury free, because I think everyone would say that, and I'm grateful for the amount of years that I did play. But I think my last 7 years in a pro, 8 years in the pro, I lived off my reputation at West Ham. Had I been a young lad and had the injuries when I was a young lad, I would never have played the amount of games that I did do. People would have just said, "Look, you're injury prone," But people brought me and thinking, if I can get myself back to some sort of form or fitness to what I was like at West Ham in my heyday, then that's the risk worth taking. So injury free, but yeah, the average lifespan of a professional footballer, I don't know if you know, Judy, it's only 6 years.
I was going to say it's a very short span, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So when people talk about the players earning the money that they do, and I'm a great believer that I've seen a lot of players, a lot of young players, and a lot of players like myself that had a career at the start and then got injury prone. I got injured at 22, 23, but I lived off the 5 years at West Ham, 200 games for the next 7-8 years, and clubs would have gone, no, I'm not touching him. He's injury prone. And like I alluded to you before, but yeah, I saw a lot of young kids that done their knee and done their Achilles, broke their leg and all that, and never got an opportunity again.
Budgie's asked, how much for a pair of your boots, Stuart?
How much for a pair of your boots? I ain't got any boots left.
God damn it, I was going to outbid him.
I ain't got any boots left. I think I gave them away.
You go, damn it.
I don't think I did actually, because they split always on the outside of my, obviously outside. So my feet were tilted like that when I used to run. I used to run on my toes, but they always split down on the outside. So I just tucked them all the time. You
run on your tiptoes and you run with your tongue out as well, didn't you? You always up. That concentration moment.
Didn't I?
We got a question. We're going to do one more video question and 2 live questions that we got left, Stuart. So I'm conscious I've had you for a little bit longer than what we said. Jazz has got a question. So, Gatesy, I can see you looking away on the video. Can we have Jazz's question? Or are you in the? He's gone. I'll tell you what. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to go with Ken's question. Yeah, you played with Paul Ince. You see how close, see him close up. How good was he even at that age?
Yeah, I missed him about that question earlier. He was top draw. He didn't get the credit for. I mean, what a career! Don't get me wrong. He didn't get the credit of how good he was on the ball, ability-wise. He had great skills. He passed with right, left foot. He could score goals, but he became a bit of a holding player, a bit of a destroyer. I mean, he was better than that. Don't get me wrong, but he was much better than what people made out. I saw it at close hand growing up with him through the ranks in the gym, and he was a big technician. He was a very talented player, and just unfortunate that he didn't have John Lyle in his life when he left, because he would have never left the way he did at West Ham, because John Lyle was, like I say, his father figure in his life. He guided him, he mentored him, and when John had left, obviously there was things that he didn't do properly, and that would never happen under John. So, he all the way through his life from 12 to when he left, I don't know, he had John had his, back all the way through. And unfortunately, when John weren't there, he'd made that mistake, and it's cost him for, the rest of his.
Do you think it's time to forgive and forget on the part of West Ham fans, Stuart? Do you think
it's difficult, because obviously, because you've crossed that line, really. You do cross that line. That being said, if you ask Incy, he would be like West Ham, and John Lyle were incredible for him to achieve what he did achieve. And had John been at the club, had he not gone, he would have stayed for as long as John would have been here. We had that relationship with John. So, yeah, the line was crossed for doing that, but he was badly advised, and you can't go back. And yeah, some fans can, and I can see why people want to forgive. They can forget, they can forgive, but they can't forget. So you're still in that situation, really.
A long time ago. Gates got one lined up, but I'm going to jump in quickly because I know his internet's sticking around, and I can see him staring at his screen down there and having a little wave and a smile. I'm going to throw up Adam's video question before I go into Jazz, because Jazz has got a 3-parter. I don't know what the questions are. Rob's kind of thrown these at me in the chat, so I'm going to quickly do this one from Adam, if I can, if it lets me.
Hi Stuart, my name's Adam, and my question is, while you were at West Ham, were there any academy players that made a mark on you, whether they went on to be great or not? Thanks.
Good question.
Yeah, a good question. I had a boot boy that was really, really done well for himself, Matty Holland. I was just, obviously at that time you thought he had the ingredients, he had the talent to come through the ranks, but I don't know what happened. But he cleaned my boots like obviously he wanted to be the best. He wanted to be the best boot cleaner. He wanted to please me more than anybody else, and he was just it was his character. It was his, everything about him. And I was just disappointed that obviously it didn't work out for him at West Ham, but boy, did he have a good career after that. He went to Bournemouth, Ipswich, and obviously Republic of Ireland, Charlton, and what he's doing now on the radio and whatever, he's a natural, brilliant. So
I actually remember working with a local five-a-side football centre, and I actually ended up spending a lot of time working on passing and shooting drills with his nephew. He came up to me. I rocked up in a West Ham shirt one afternoon, and he proceeded to tell me all about his uncle Matt. And we stood there having a little conversation. I ended up talking to his mum, and he went on to have a good career.
Good career.
He did.
I mean, I think good career. You could say that. There wasn't. But my boot boys, I had some good boot boys. I had Kieran Dyer, Shay Given. So you had a few that went on to bigger and better things.
A couple of names, put them in there.
Yeah.
Right. Ken says that May Holland was in the squads for the Anglo-Italian Cup in 92-93. God blimey. If I remember rightly, I think we lost to Cremonese, and they wore a bright pink kit. If I remember rightly, I might be. Kent will let me know. He does this. I say if I remember rightly, and then Kent will come in a few minutes down the line. The last video, Simon says, if you were as a manager, what would you give? What advice would you give to players to play properly and not be bottom on not just basically bottom out, really?
Yeah. All I say, guys, is play for the jersey. Give you 100%. If you give 100% and everything else is not good enough, then so be it. But I think you get, respect from your players. Respect if you play at a higher level in front of a crowd. The crowd will tolerate that. There were times where Julian Dix, what a player, but sometimes, he'd just go and kick somebody, just go and kick somebody in the stand because that's the way he played. But that got the crowd, and the crowd loved that. They didn't need to see the entertaining football that obviously he had or we could have. They'd love that as well. As long as they put a shift in and they played for the jersey, that's the advice that I give you. Give 100%. Listen to people that have got your back, obviously your coaches, because nowadays, being in coaching for the amount of time that you do, if you try and tell a young lad about something that, perhaps they're not doing that well, some kids take it personally. And, don't take things personally. They're here. Coaches are there to help.
Leave it all on the pitch. I remember you just saying there about Julian Dix. I remember him putting, was it Ted McMinn from Derby? I think about 4 rows back in the chicken run. I think that one was live on TV, if I remember rightly. And I still remember. He put
a few in.
There was a few that he put over there. I think there's a few fans with stab marks in thighs and stuff where the players came down on top of them. Right, we're gonna hit this 3-parter from Jazz. It's a 45-second video, so you're gonna have to pay attention.
Okay, you're gonna have to remind
us. Jazz from the West Ham.
Gatesy.
3 very quick questions, mate. First home game, Bradford, August 1989. You scored 2 goals under the lights, mate. Second game I went was this one with you on it, mate. 3 quick questions. I have a lot of time for Lou Macari, mate, and I know how much he's done for you and the 5-6 players he brought in that season. Let me know what you think about Macari. Do you agree with me? I think he was more than good enough. Bad luck he went. Second question, mate, why did you leave for Celtic? Third question, that injury that you had, which kind of you never were the same again. If you had that today, would that make a difference in terms of medical advances, mate? That's it from me. Loved you. Thank you for your service for the club. Brought a big smile on my face as a 15, 16-year-old in that 1989 season, mate. So take care.
What a question.
They were very quick fire questions.
Yeah.
Weren't they? He said about Lou Macari. He mentioned about Lou Macari.
I mean, obviously, following John Lahr was really difficult. I don't think Lou realised how difficult it was going to be, but Personally, I got on great with Lou, and he loved me. And I think that's the case. If you're a player that obviously does quite well for your manager, the manager's going to like you a lot more than what probably Lou got. I mean, he had to inherit all these players that had been with John for a long period of time. You got the Tony Gales, the Alvin Martins, and Alan Devonshires. They've been with John for a long period of time. So they knew how he worked. They knew what he was like. But, he was following in big footsteps. So really, really difficult for Lou. But I got on great, and I love Lou as well. As much, I mean, obviously John was brilliant for me, but Lou just as great for me as well. And a quick funny story: when I left Celtic to go to Ipswich to join John, within 3 months of joining Ipswich, Lou McCurry got the Celtic job, and he phoned me up and said, "I want you back to Celtic," and I said, "Lou, I'd love to play for you. I'd love to play for Celtic again, but I think I will get lynched and you will get lynched by Celtic, Bob, if I was to come back." I said, "I don't think that would be the wise thing to do," but that's how much Lou loved me, and I got on great with Lou. So, fair play.
I think you say about obviously Lou following in the footsteps of John in much the same way as obviously West Ham manager now David Moyes was following in the footsteps of obviously Sir Alex. It couldn't have been easy. It must have been such a difficult for both of them, that transition period, especially for Moyes as well. A lot of the old school players, that class of 92, I think they all retired at the same season, didn't they? So it was kind of left him out. So he's back. He's rocked up. He wants to have the last question, Stuart. So I'm gonna let him steal the limelight from me for a moment, because I've taken up a lot of your time. So go on in, Rob. What you got for us? You're on mute, Robert.
He's got on mute, sir. That's me normally. That's me normally, Rob.
Sorry. Well, what can we do? If I hadn't put it on mute, you'd have probably heard my dog barking or whatever. You know what I mean? So, anyway, my question: any three figures, celebrity figures, outside of the world of football, either dead or alive, that you could sit down and have lunch with, who would they be?
Good question. I think Tiger Woods would be definitely one for me.
Okay.
Obviously, what he had endured, one of the best golfers of all time, and I've obviously found my niche after football. I love me golf. Nelson Mandela, another one, for what he had to go through. Amazing what he came through. Who else? We couldn't have the. Good question. All sporty it was. It was more sporty that I had. I mean, obviously Nelson Mandela was that. It would probably be someone like Muhammad Ali again. All the greatest. I loved my sport. I grew up with sport. I loved me football. And then obviously with what Nelson Mandela, had to go through and what it did, and how he became president. It was just incredible what he did. So yeah, all those three.
Good
brilliant icons. Yeah.
Stuart, before we wrap up, I'm going to put a question to you that I want you to think about. I don't want your answer now, because I know what this man here, where is he? There he is. This man's going to ask you a question. Once we're off air, he's probably even asked you over text. I don't know. I know it's already happened. But if we were to have a Mount Rushmore, Stuart, of West Ham, a Mount Rushmore.
No, I'm gonna get him on, and we're gonna do one.
All right, I wasn't going to ask him now. I was just letting him think about it, Robert. Think about it.
All right.
Okay.
Never think. You don't drop it on him and then record it.
I've got to think. Geez,
green room afterwards.
You're thinking about it, Cordy. You're taxing my brain now, aren't you?
Listen, Stuart, I want to say thank you for your time. I know when we met a few months back in, was it May? We swapped numbers. You agreed to come on the show at some point. I'll be honest, and it's no reflection of you. I didn't think we were ever going to get you on our channel, not because you didn't want to, just because obviously you're a busy man yourself, and it was a case of finding time. So the fact that I've got to sit here for the last hour and a half coming up on, that I've got to pretty much ask questions and interview one of my favourite West Ham players that I've ever got to see play and spend some time talking to you. It's been my honour. I just want to say thank you.
My pleasure. And any time, as I said, if you need me, as I said, I am here. You've got my numbers. If you need me to help with the channel and all that, you need me on again. Whatever you need to do, it's been a privilege, pleasure.
No, it's as exactly what Duke says. You were someone, and Duke said it, and I'm going to say you were someone obviously that I watched growing up as well, and someone that I similarly, idolized. I'll say it's probably very embarrassing. You're a very humble man, I'm sure. It gets a little bit embarrassing when people say things like that. You're like, I'll leave it out, but that's the truth. I remember the goal against Everton and all the rest of it, and same as Duke. It's quite a privilege to be in this spot where all right, I've been behind and I've been pressing buttons. I'm quite happy with that. That's cool. But just to be able to have this opportunity with you has been really, really good.
Pleasure knowing you as well, meeting you at the Rush Club. So yeah, well done.
Likewise.
Well
Likewise.
done,
Do you want to do the finish up then, Duke, or do you want me to do it?
You know what, guys? You know what? He gets all the limelight, doesn't he?
Go on, you do it.
If I could kick him out, I would. Don't forget, guys. So he's put me on the spot here. I never do these. Support the Iron Sport and Food Banks, guys. These guys, in this day and age, we're in the middle of obviously a crisis, cost crisis, all the rest of it. There are families out there that are struggling to feed their families, feed the children, put food on the table. The Iron Sport and Food Banks, they do a great job. John and the guys there, from what I remember from previous videos, I think they're something like 33,000 tons of food that they've delivered to be able to aid other families that are, less prosperous than ourselves, to put food on the table. They take, outside the ground, they'll take money, they'll take canned goods, anything else. Like I say, I'm not as practiced as him. He does all of this normally, so I'm kind of making it up as I go along. That being said, those of you that are still watching, 90 of you, if you could drop us a like, leave some comments on the stream, share the stream to your social media, everything else. It helps me and Rob. And also, if you're new around here, hit the subscribe, hit the bell icon, be notified when we do any more of these shows, and keep an eye on our social media. Much appreciated. How was that, Rob? Was that all right?
Yeah, I think you did quite well. You might have to do this a bit more often.
I don't. I just turn up, talk shit, go away. That's what I do, right? Okay. You do all that, my love.
We got our roles defined, have we?
I'm on the wrong side of the screen for the most part, Rob. I didn't like it.
Right, okay, before we wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do our usual finish off. Gentlemen, what are we?
Stuart, it's all yours. What are West Ham?
Come on, your Irons.
I'll do it. We're massive.
Yes.
Come on, you Irons.
Stuart, thank you.
Thank you.
And